Hello class, my name is Professor Catalina and you are attending my course, A Brief Look into the History and Culture that has shaped present-day Nicaragua. I am one of the foremost specialists on this exact topic and received my degree in concise communications. Throughout this course, we will be looking at the history of Nicaragua from 1912 through 2011, as well as skimming the surface of the topics such as poverty, fair trade, and politics over the next few sessions. Attendance is required, and your entire grade will be based on participation. So do not alter class, because I will not wait for you, and neither shall history. Without further ado, let us begin with our first and foundational lesson for the study of Nicaragua, its history. Now, Nicaragua is located in Central America, just north of Costa Rica. Its history is filled with violence and revolution. Most interesting, however, is in its history, its relationship to the United States. Now, in the year 1912, a man named Augusto Cesar Sandino started a rebellion against the Nicaraguan government and the US presence in Nicaragua that would leave its roots until 2011, until this very day. The US Marines launched a counterattack, as you would expect, against Sandino and the rebel forces that lasted until 1933, when the Sandinistas, as they were termed, managed to kick those Yankees out. But while the physical presence of the United States was no longer in Nicaragua, their aid was very much alive and present in this country. And in 1934, the US helped military officer Anastasio Somoza assassinate Sandino, leaving the revolution in ruins. Then, in 1936, Somoza went on to found one of the most infamous dictatorships of the world, completely fueled and supported by the US. Somoza and his family ruled Nicaragua for 43 years. Then, in the year 1979, the Sandinista National Liberation Front, or the FSLN as they are termed in Nicaragua, began a revolution. The FSLN is a political party based on the ideals of Sandino from the early 1900s that had a vision of a Nicaragua free of the US. In 1979, the FSLN managed to wipe Somoza out and send him into exile, leaving Nicaragua without the dictator they had had for 43 years. Now, once they did this, they had the power. But, as you can imagine, the US was not so happy with this because they had been fueling the Somoza dictatorship for so long. So, when the Reagan administration came about in 1981, they began sending financial aid, among other things, to help rebel forces go against the Sandinistas that were in power. These forces were called Contra forces, and the war that ensued for the next 10 years was called the Contra War. During the time of the Contra War, a man named Daniel Ortega was elected, or selected I should say, by the FSLN to be the leader of Nicaragua. In 1990, free elections were held and Violeta Chamorro defeated Ortega, becoming the president of Nicaragua. 1990 is also the year that Reagan's term as president ended and the Contra War ceased, leaving Nicaragua free of the US presence or US influence for one of the first times in its history. Up until 2006, Nicaragua did not suffer from another civil war or much violence, but what it did suffer, and some could argue that this is some of the worst suffering of all, was political corruption in a government that was supposed to be free and democratic. Now, up until 2006, there were several different presidents that were elected. But in 2006, Daniel Ortega again ran for the presidency. And in 2007, he was inaugurated as the president of Nicaragua. Now, his government has been criticized because he still represents the party of FSLN, the Sandinistas. It has been criticized as becoming exactly like the oppressors and dictators they were once fighting. Harsh, but could it be true? We shall see. Now, 2011, coming to present day. This is another election year for Nicaragua, and according to Nicaraguan constitution, all presidents may only serve for 2 terms. Well, in the recent years, Daniel Ortega has managed to change the constitution and has received the court's approval to run for a 3rd term. Is this democratic? Well, you decide. Now, what does all of this look like for the people of Nicaragua today? Well, many of them have lived through the Contra Wars, and the realities of the violence and suffering their country has suffered are very much alive with them today. Also, going off of political terms, Ortega has propaganda all over the country, and the words Cristiana, Socialista, Solidaridad, Christian, Socialist, and Solidarity are emblazoned on the sky of his propaganda and posters. And the only graffiti you will see is red and black with the words FSLN written all over it, from the most urban places of Managua, the capital of Nicaragua, to the most rural parts of the country. Now, I was there for a week, and I can't even tell you if there was another candidate running. This is what the politics and history of Nicaragua are looking like today, this very month. And there we are, the history of Nicaragua, briefly and concisely, from 1912 until 2011. Thank you for joining me today. We will begin class next week on the next topic. I hope you learned very much, and we shall talk to you soon again later. Goodbye.